Today is April the 27th, 2016. My name is Tanya Finchum, and along with me is Dr. Charles Abramson. I am with the library here on the campus of OSU, and Charles is in the psychology department. And today we are in the history department to speak with Dr. Elizabeth Williams. And do I need to get your title right? Professor and Director of Graduate Studies for the history department?
That's correct.
Soon to be retired.
Yes.
In a few short weeks.
At the end of this semester. That's right.
Well, thank you for spending this afternoon with us.
Well, thank you for asking me. I have a long and deep attachment to OSU, so I thought it was a nice occasion.
Okay. Well, let's start with learning a little bit about you, beginning with when and where you were born.
I was born in 1950 in Muskogee, Oklahoma. So I am a native Oklahoman, and my family's been here for a very long time.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, I had 2 brothers and 2 sisters. Nice big Catholic family.
And where are you in the lineup?
I'm in the last but one, so I'm not the baby, but almost.
Almost.
Yes.
Well, what did your parents do for a living?
My dad was a loan officer at, I believe it was called Commercial National Bank, if I'm not mistaken. And my mother was a homemaker.
Okay. And were they both born in Oklahoma?
Yes, they were. My dad was born in Muskogee. My mother was born in a little town called Leedy. I'm not sure I can find that on the Oklahoma map.
It's in Dewey County. Been there.
Okay, there you go. Well, you know more about it than I do. I've never been there. When I think about that, I always intended to go see the little town where my mother was born.
I can get you there.
Okay.
And then your grandparents, were they from Oklahoma, or did they come in?
No, they all came in. My granddad on my dad's side came around 1910. He and my grandmother were from Iowa. They both went to Cornell College in Mount Vernon, Iowa. And my granddad had a degree in engineering, and he went for a little while to Mexico and worked on the railroads there. But apparently that didn't proved to be exactly to his liking, and so he moved back to Muskogee, and he became a school teacher. And he was a school teacher at the junior high and then the high school, and then he was principal at the high school in Muskogee for a number of years. So, teachers. My grandmother, of course, since they met in Iowa, she was also from Iowa. On the other side, they're from Missouri. And my grandmother, my mother's mother, was born in Kirksville, Missouri, which, interestingly, I teach as my main research field, history of medicine. And there's a form of medicine called osteopathy, which we know about a great deal at OSU since we have an osteopathic school in Tulsa. The founder of osteopathy was a man named Andrew Still, who practiced and began that form of medicine, a very American form of medicine in Kirksville, Missouri. So I love to tell my students, this is a very important place in my life. That's where my grandmother came from. And he began this whole approach to medicine, which became very important in Oklahoma, up through the Midwest, moved out with Oklahomans who went to California, and all stemming from Kirksville.
It sounds like education was a very important part of growing up then.
It really was. Absolutely.
It was just assumed that you would go to college then.
Well, not exactly, because whether young girls went to college was always open to question. And although my mother had all the admiration in the world for college-educated people and had gone herself for 2 years to Oklahoma State in the 1930s, she believed that the most important thing for a young girl was to learn a marketable skill so that if she found herself in a condition where she had to support herself or children, she could do that. So she urged me to study stenography and typing as guaranteed skills. And she wanted me to go to college, but she thought that should also be taken care of so that if I didn't finish or something got in the way, I could always take care of myself. So But in those days, those skills were actually taught in college classes. I don't think they are anymore. Nobody teaches what we would call keyboarding, right, in the university. But I took a shorthand class and a typing class at OSU my first semester in 1968. So times have changed.
Yeah, well, then let's back up. Since we're talking about education, where did you go to elementary school?
I went to Sacred Heart School in Muskogee, which was at that time the only Catholic primary school in the city. Catholics were few in number in Muskogee. I always felt like I knew a lot about what it was like to be in a religious minority from growing up in Muskogee as a Catholic. The teachers there were from an order of nuns called the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet, and their mother house was in St. Louis, so they had a Midwestern base. And they were fabulous teachers. There were only 4 of them, and they taught 8 grades. So these women usually had 50 to 60 students in a classroom, and they would teach on one side of the room to the 3rd graders and move over to the other side of the room and teach the 4th graders and go back and forth all day long. And when I look back on that and I think, how did they do that? It's kind of miraculous. But they were wonderful, wonderful teachers. And they made it clear that learning, education was supremely important. So they were a huge influence on me.
How would they discipline children?
Oh, dear. They were very strict. They did use corporal punishment on the real troublemakers, I guess. They sent children home to call their parents and have them come pick them up if they caused any kind of trouble or disturbance. They'd bring in the parish priest. He terrified everyone. Just his presence in the room scared children. So it was a very different educational world from the one that we know now for primary schools. And that, of course, has its good sides and its bad sides. So the discipline, I think, was very helpful in teaching things like grammar, for example, which I think is hard for children and requires a lot of discipline and practice and is great for your writing skills. But they enforced it with kind of scary methods sometimes.
Did you have to wear uniforms?
Yes, we wore uniforms. Yes, yeah, the whole time.
It wasn't a boarding school. You just would go during the day.
It was a day school, yeah. And it was a co-ed school.
So after the 8th grade?
Then I went to Muskogee Junior High, which was where my granddad had been at one time, the principal. And let's see, that school went from 7, 8, 9 grades, and I came in the 9th grade. And then the next year I moved to Central High, which was then, and I'm pretty sure still, the only high school in Muskogee. So that was a big change.
And what year did you graduate from there?
1968.
So you were kind of there when they were doing integration? Or maybe the tail end of it, maybe?
Our school was always integrated from the time that I got there. But there were very few African American students. There was a separate African American high school that was called Manual High. Mm-hmm. Do you know Muskogee?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A little bit.
And I think probably most of the African American students went there, but there were African American students in my class from the time that I arrived in my sophomore year. There were also some African American students at Sacred Heart. So I had always gone to an integrated school. But I remember all of that very, very well because the town was deeply segregated. And when the nuns used to take us on a lot of trips, usually to some religious event. And I remember very distinctly one time when we went, we were in a van and we stopped to eat. And we went to get a hot dog or something. and we were refused service because there was an African American youngster with us. And so the nuns herded us all back into the van and said that we could go somewhere and buy some sandwiches or something, and we would do that instead. So that made a huge impression on me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, did you have a favorite subject in high school?
history.
Go figure, huh?
I always loved history. I loved history from the time I was in the 5th grade. That's the first contact I can remember having with it. And this was, again, partly as a result of the sisters. One of them was a great enthusiast for history, and so she taught a lot of history. They had a lot of choice about what they spent their time on in the classroom, and this was pre-uniform testing and all that stuff all the time. And the one that I remember the best was a great enthusiast for the Crusades. And at the time, of course, the Crusades were all presented as heroic adventures on the part of good Catholics and all of that. Anyway, she was a wonderful teacher, and I got very, very interested in that. And I got very interested in France, which was the area that I came later to focus on, partly because of that. Their religious order was based in France originally. And my mother was a great lover of things French and had studied French and loved the language. And so really from very early, I was interested in what I later became a specialist in.
From 5th grade.
From
That's
5th grade.
pretty impressive.
And I think I love history as much and more now as I have through all the rest of my life. It's never lost interest for me in any way, but has just grown and deepened as I've been a professional historian.
Oh, the other thing I know about Muskogee is they had a Carnegie Library.
Mm-hmm.
Did you
Yes.
spend much time there?
I loved that library. I really did. In those days, the library was right near the high school. There were 3 great places there. There was the high school, there was the library, and there was the Carnation ice cream store. And that was a great combination. I was on the debate team, so I would go after school to the library to do research for our topics, and then my friend, who was my debate partner, and I would go to the Carnation place and have a chocolate malt. So that was a great thrill whenever we did that. I loved that old library. The one they have now is wonderful, beautiful, modernized. But I was sad when they abandoned that building because I had gone there as often as I possibly could when I was little, and from when I was in grade school on. So.
Well, growing up, as you finished high school, did you have a part-time job or
Yes, I
anyway?
worked. Did I work during the school year? I'm not sure about that. I had my first summer job in between my junior and senior year, and I worked full-time at the hospital in the food service area, and that was incredibly interesting because I moved every 2 weeks, so I met a new set of adults every 2 weeks. And they had the most amazing stories. I remember one woman, big, strong, flaming red hair, Irish woman, whose husband was in the Merchant Marine. I had never heard of the Merchant Marine, and she told me stories about where he had traveled around the world. And that was something entirely different to me. And one of the really wonderful things about that job was that there were, of course, a lot of African American women who worked in the food service in the hospital. And that was the first time I'd ever really had the opportunity to get to know African American women. And they had stories of their life in Muskogee that were entirely outside my ken. And it was incredibly interesting. And they were incredibly brave and strong, and a lot of them had had really hard lives. So that was a good job.
From a history, interested in history, it would be, I would think.
Yes, it was. It was a really good job. I don't think that I worked during the school year, though, as I recall. I always worked part-time while I was going to college, but I don't think my parents wanted us to work while we were going to high school.
So you were on the debate team in high school?
Yeah.
Were you involved in any other activities?
That was my main one. A guy who later became the mayor of Muskogee, Orville Eaton was his name. He was just a wonderful character, and he great coach. The debate team was incredibly active at that time. We took probably 10 to 12 major trips a year to we didn't call them conferences, tournaments. And so during the debate season, we were on the go all the time, and he had oversight of all those kids. Again, I marvel when I look back at my teachers at the things they did. I did have other activities. I was on the drill team. I don't think there is such a thing anymore, but and I belonged to one of the social organizations. What did they call them then? I can't remember. But debate was the most important thing to me.
So after high school graduation, what did you do? Or I guess where were you considering college?
Okay, so this is where the story gets a little uncomfortable from the point of view of OSU. So my mother, again, thinking very practically and not that keen to send me off to college, wanted me to go to Northeastern in Tahlequah, which I love that region very much because we had gone there a lot to debate, and it's a beautiful part of the state, as you know. So I didn't want to do that. I really wanted to go leave home. I didn't want to live at home. So both my mother and dad went to OSU. My father graduated with a degree in what was then called commerce, a business degree, sometime in the later 30s, maybe 36, 37. And he loved OSU deeply, and obviously wanted me, if I was going to go to one of the two schools, to go to OSU. So I did what my parents wanted. But I was here for one semester, and I had a great history teacher, by the way, Dr. Ted Agnew, whom a lot of people my age and older will remember. He was a great member of the history department. Died, I think, about 8 years ago, something like that. And my other classes were excellent too, but most of my debate friends had gone to OU. And I missed them, and I would hear of things that were going on down there, and I really wanted to go down there. So without even talking to my parents, which seems so arrogant when I look back on it, almost unbelievable, I applied to OU, and then I just announced to my parents at Christmas time that I was switching to OU. Well, I'm sure my dad was not happy about that, but he didn't say a thing about it. If that's what you want to do. And so I moved. I did not at the time realize that probably somewhere hidden in my thinking was that in those days, OU was much more active in the humanities and the fields that I wanted to study than OSU. I think if you compared the two, you would still find that there's more money, resources supplied to the humanities disciplines there than with us. They have a bigger history department, for example. Not better, bigger. And the contrast was fairly marked, I think, in the late 60s. Our PhD program in this department, for example, only got underway in 1967, so 1 year before I started to school at OSU. Anyway, at that point, I left and went to OU, and I took my degree from OU. And the reason that I was able to be a member of Phi Beta Kappa was precisely because I had gone down there. They had a Phi Beta Kappa chapter, and as you well know, ours came along quite a bit later. as I say, how much of that figured into my 18-year-old thinking, I'm not sure, but students absorb things from their atmosphere. And I was very happy at OU. I loved it. I loved Norman. I loved the people. I've always thought that the fact that people carry the athletic rivalry over into other elements of the university experience is pretty silly. And I've had a lot of contact over the years with people at OU while I was a teacher here. And we've gotten on just fine. So that was a shock, I think, to my dad's system. And it is somewhat ironic then that later in my life, as things moved along, I ended up coming back to OSU. That was an unexpected development.
Which dorm did you live in when you were here?
I lived in, was it called Kerr Drummond then? It was one of the big ones. Is that the one? There's one left, right, from the old days, one of the high-rise ones.
I think that's Kerr Drummond.
Yes, and I lived way up on I think it was the 10th floor or something, so I've never lived in any such locale.
It wasn't in this building. That's why it wasn't in Murray.
Well, interestingly, so my mother's sister also went to OSU. As I say, I have many, many OSU connections. Her name was Marguerite Fox Clifton. She was in what was then called the home ec department, and she took a degree in home ec, I believe in around 1935, something like that. And when the project got underway to refurbish Murray, I was then head of the history department, and I was among that first group that came over with Dr. Sherwood to look around and get a sense of the decay into which the building had fallen. But I also then was privy to certain information about what the building had been in the past that I at least had never known. Other people may have known it. And one of the things I found out was that this was, in fact, a girls' dorm. I assume that's what you're alluding to. Mm-hmm. And I found a set of photographs of the young women who lived here in, I believe, 1933. And there was a picture of my Aunt Marguerite. And for years, after we moved in over here, there was a bulletin board down the way that had that set of photographs from early 1930s. And there was my aunt. And there was a lovely little article that went along with it that described the life of the young women at that time, what it was like to live in a dorm. It said, I assume this was accurate, that they used to come down and eat formally at tables with white tablecloths. Someone was playing the piano while they had dinner. So about as different from dorm room eating as you can imagine now, right? I thought that was so charming. I've told my students about that ever since, about my aunt and what the style was for a young women's dorm in those days. And I was just thrilled to find her picture. She was a very beautiful woman. And every time I passed that down in the hallway there, it made me happy to think about her having been here.
A lot of connections.
Oh, yes, many connections. They go way back.
You would have graduated from OU in
72, yes.
And Vietnam was going on around in that time, too.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Any memories of campus during that time?
Oh, yes. Very, very, very distinct. In Norman, there were a great many very large and powerful demonstrations, student demonstrations. And I was a part of those. I was very, very much opposed to the war. And when I was, what year would that have been? 69, the great mobilization where 1 million people, I believe, went to Washington, D.C. and protested against the war. That was one of the most important events of my college career because it was the first political issue that I ever read about in depth and studied and thought about for myself. And it left a huge impression on me. You may know the writer Seymour Hersh, who's still incredibly active. His writings at that time were incredibly important to me. And so it was the first historical issue. I always think of it as a historical issue that impinged very powerfully on my own life. So.
Well, graduating from OU, did you plan to go on and get a graduate degree?
So here again, I had a crucial teacher.
Okay.
His name was Robert Nye. I just realized recently, we have remained friends all our lives, had just come to OU, taken his first teaching job the semester before I arrived. And I took a class with him in the spring of 1969 that was just a powerful, powerful introduction to the field that became my major field, which is European intellectual and cultural history. And he was a magnificent teacher. And he is the one who, when I started talking to him about what I was going to do in the future, encouraged me to think and realize that I could go to graduate school and I could try to get a PhD and I could try to become a university professor. I had thought about being a high school teacher. And my mother was very much, once she realized I wasn't going to be a stenographer, she was very much in favor of that. And I enrolled in the teacher certification program, but I really didn't like it because in those days, and to some extent this is still true, teachers who are certified in social studies, instead of taking a lot of upper division work in one field or two fields, they take a smattering of introductory courses in all kinds of things, right? So you take introductory soc and introductory econ and introductory history and introductory geography. And that to me was just not exciting. I wanted to move on into the sort of higher reaches of a discipline. And of course, my primary love was always history. And so I talked to him about that, and I realized that maybe, in fact, I could get a PhD, which had seemed impossible and way beyond my ken. And he told me how to do it, that you could go to graduate school and get funding as a teaching assistant, and as long as you could do that, you could make enough money living a monk's life to pay your bills, and they would pay your tuition. And once I realized that, then I was on my way. So,
yeah, where did you get your?
Well, I went first to the University of Oregon, which is where I met my husband. So that was a crucial moment in my life, Eugene, Oregon, and I stayed there to get my master's degree. And then I decided to leave for a little while and work for a while. I thought it would be good to test the work world to try to make a clear decision. Was I making the right decision to think about going on? And I was out for a couple of years and lived in California and worked for the Securities and Exchange Commission in their office. And then I think I was there about 15 months, and I started thinking I really need to get on to graduate school. So I applied then to, I think I just applied to 3 schools, which was crazy because I always tell my students, pick 8 or 9 schools, divide them into 3 tiers. But I only applied to a few schools, and I got a very nice offer from Indiana University to come and work as an editorial assistant for the American Historical Review, which was and still is the leading journal in our field for all parts of history. And I thought that was wonderful. And so I decided to go there, and it was wonderful. I got very great training in editing and how to put a journal together. That was a really great experience. So I was on my way then from there.
that helped write in the dissertation too, I guess.
It really
with the
did.
experience.
It really did. I just think that I got wonderful training first from the nuns who were absolutely devoted to grammar and good writing, and sort of thought of it as good writing is godly. And then that training, which was under the direction of the man who was the editor of the journal for 3 years, was very precise and a tremendous help to me when I went to do my own writing that I hope to have published.
What was the topic of your dissertation?
I was very interested in race theory, and I became aware at a certain point of the existence of what was often called the pseudoscience of craniology, which was a science in the 19th century that thought that you could establish a hierarchy of racial superiority and inferiority according to the size of the cranium. And these characters developed a whole bunch of methods for measuring the cranium and other bodily features, and participated very intensely in the elaboration of theories of racism that had the cachet of science. And I was very much opposed to the term pseudoscience, because that was actual very prestigious state-of-the-art science in the 19th century. If you call it a pseudoscience, you can think of these people as quacks and try to push them under the rug, right? So I got interested then in essentially the participation of anthropologists in, most of the people who did this were anthropologists, in the creation of European theories of race. And that's what I wrote my dissertation on, specifically focused on the Anthropological Society of Paris. I had by that point definitely settled on being a French historian, and I went to Paris and went to their headquarters and worked in their archives and read in the French National Library much of their printed work, and that's what I worked on. And it was called, what was it called? No, I just found it the other day.
I was looking at it.
The Science of Man, Anthropological Thought and Institutions in 19th Century France. So I didn't know I still had a copy of it. That was kind of a shocker. There it is. That's how this whole thing got started.
Were you married at that time?
No,
So he didn't go to Paris with you?
No, he came the second half of my year's research period in Paris, and it was at that time that we decided to get married. He was teaching, in the interim, he had taken a linguistics degree and gotten a TESOL certificate, and he was teaching English in Spain, which was wonderful because we went back and forth between Spain and France, which, when you're 30 years old, what could be better than that? So that was wonderful. We got married when we got home.
I should back up and ask what your maiden name was then.
I use my maiden name.
It's Williams.
I did not change my name, so my name's always been Elizabeth Williams. His name is Mayer.
And what were your parents' names?
My mother's name was Grace Marie, and my dad's name was Fred Neff Williams.
Okay, so once you finish with your PhD, take us through your career.
So I did all my coursework and my exams and everything, took that year in Paris. After we got married, I quickly had a baby, and that kind of slowed me down a little bit for a while. I didn't work very much on my dissertation for about a year. And then one day I thought, got to get moving again. And my teachers at Indiana would write to me and say, okay, when is this going to happen? And that was very helpful. So I finished that up, took my degree in December of '83, went on the job market, applied for how many jobs? I don't know. A great many. A problem with my having served as an editorial assistant for the American Historical Review was that I was never a teaching assistant, so I had no teaching experience. I did not know what a drawback this was going to be when it came time to go onto the job market, because everybody wants somebody who's had at least some teaching experience. But I didn't have any, and I began to realize as I kept sending out these letters that this might in fact be a real problem. But one day, after I'd sent out, I don't know how many, I wonder if it was 100, probably something like that, I got a call from the department head at the University of Georgia, and he told me he'd read my file, and he was wondered if I would be interested in a one-year appointment with a potential renewal to 3. And I said, would I be interested? I was so thrilled. He hired 3 people from Indiana University that year, sight unseen. So he had a lot of confidence in that university, I think. And so that was my first teaching job. And I went there in the fall of 1984, and I taught there for 2 years. And I loved it there. I loved the University of Georgia. I loved the state. But my husband and I were trying to coordinate the 2 job issue, and there were not 1, not 2, but 3 people in the English department in his field. And we assumed that he was never going to get a job at Georgia. So we began looking around, and one day, very late in the year, I went down, and on the bulletin board in the history department was a flyer. That's how they used to advertise in those days. No internet, and it was an opening at Oklahoma State University. And I saw that, and I thought, wait a minute, I bet I could get that job. Because I had a lot of ties with OSU, and that never hurts. No. And so we checked the English department. Did they have anything that looked like it might be an opening within the next couple of years for Robert? And we decided that it would probably be a pretty good move for us. So I had at that point been away from Oklahoma for 14 years. And when I called my mother and said, well, we might be coming back, she was just ecstatic, because Georgia's a long way from Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And I had a beautiful little daughter by that point, and she was thrilled at the thought of our coming back. And so I came out and met many of the people who are still my colleagues up and down this hall right now. I guess a lot of them have left by now, but some of the ones who are most important in meeting me and talking to me and encouraging me when I came for that interview are still here. So we've been here a long time.
You came in 80?
So I came in 86. Yeah.
So 30 years.
Yes, 30 years here and 2 at Georgia. So, yeah. And by that point, I had another child, and she was 6 months old when we moved here. And my father had died in the interim. My mother moved to Stillwater and lived with us for the first year while I was teaching and Robert was teaching, and took care of our little girl, which was just a wonderful, wonderful thing for her to do. I later realized at the time, it's amazing the things you take for granted that your parents do for you. I later thought about it, and I thought, my goodness, my mother was 70 years old when she offered to do this. And I only now realize what it means for a 70-year-old woman to take on the care of a 6-month-old child full time. So
things just seemed to fall into place.
They did, yes. And my husband was hired for a temporary job first, and then he got a regular appointment in the English department. And that made possible for us just a wonderful life. We both had the kind of work we wanted. We had wonderful colleagues and associates and students. And we were working at a very fine institution, one that I actually have come to admire more and more as I have gotten older. I realize what a really sound institution it is. And I had the great good luck, which most academics don't have, of being near my family. My sisters and my one brother live in Oklahoma City to this day. So that's unusual for academics. And I was always happy for that I could live near them. My husband's from Detroit, so he did not get to enjoy that. But
well, Oklahoma's closer than Georgia.
It is.
To Detroit.
That's right. And we always say there's some kind of a spiritual Oklahoma-Michigan connection. I don't know what it is. We've met lots of people in Michigan who have ties to Oklahoma, and lots of people in Oklahoma have ties to Michigan. And so anyway, that's how it all unfolded, and it has been a good life.
Well, in '86, campus has changed a lot in those 30 years too.
Yes.
I would think.
Yes, absolutely. This campus has changed fantastically in the last 10 years. It just seems like another space is filled up with another
Where was your first
amazing
office?
building. Let's see, when we started, or when I started, the history department was in math sciences I think we were on the 5th floor. And then we were moved to Life Sciences West. And then we moved over here when Murray was, the renovation of Murray was completed. My husband, on the other hand, of course, has been in Morrill all these years, and the English department has been in Morrill for a very, very long time. Although I believe, now I could be wrong about this, but it seems to me, like I learned at one time, that my dad, when he was a business student, had been in Morrill, but I could have that wrong. David Peters in the library would know all that, right?
Most likely, yes.
All of that.
What did your dad bring you over when you came your first semester here? Did he travel?
No, my brother brought me.
Your brother?
Yes, my brother brought me. I've looked back on that and thought that was funny too, because now parents so anxiously go with their children off to college, right? And it's a tremendous moment of transition, and everyone's a nervous wreck. And my parents took it totally in stride, and my brother was a good driver, and why not have him take me? So he took me. I remember that. And he moved me into the dorm. And
were you the first of the children to come?
To OSU.
To
Yes.
OSU?
Yes, I was. Yeah.
And then you left.
I was trying to think. So my dad died before I got my job at OSU. So he never knew that I was going to be a long-term teacher. He died the second year that I was in Georgia. So.
Well, but he at least knew that you made Phi Beta Kappa at OU.
Oh, yes, he knew that. Yes, yeah.
So bring it back. I mean, you did. I'm assuming you did make the Phi Beta Kappa at OU.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
You said.
I don't know what the name of their chapter was, but yes. My mother was the one, though, who was really, really impressed by Phi Beta Kappa, and had told me about. I was trying to remember when Charles said that you wanted to ask me these questions. Had we talked about it before it came up when I was nominated by the faculty? I believe so. In those days, to my recollection, Phi Beta Kappa was not only the most prestigious, but the only major humanities scholarly organization, I believe. And my mother knew all about it. And I remember when I got my key and how happy she was, how proud that made her that I had become a member of Phi Beta Kappa. So she was very attuned to things that went on in the academic world, and always somebody who admired learning tremendously. So,
How do you think she had learned about Phi Beta Kappa?
probably those years so she went to OSU for 2 years, and she and my aunt and my grandmother, who had long been widowed, lived together in a little house on Walnut Street, I believe, in the 1930s. So Mother had been here and on campus, and was aware, I'm sure, of a lot of things that went on the university campus. although she wouldn't have heard about Phi Beta Kappa from anything that was going on at OSU. But I believe that if we went back and did a search of general interest magazines, like Life magazine or the ones that were standard in middle class households, I think you would find references to Phi Beta Kappa. It'd be interesting to do that.
How about old movies?
And movies, perhaps, as well. Yes. So the cultural presence of Phi Beta Kappa, I believe, was stronger in those days than it is now. We have so many different organizations now, and it was, I believe, unique. So if you paid attention to that sort of thing in Life or Reader's Digest or any of those sort of standard publications that were in people's homes, I think she probably would have encountered it.
Did they have a ceremony where she could come and watch when you got your pen?
They did have a ceremony, yes. I don't believe my parents came, though. I think it was held during the regular work week, and as I recall, in the afternoon. And I don't believe it was something that many parents came to. I remember our professors being there in a big sort of conclave of academics. I don't believe it was something that was pitched at the families. I could be wrong, but.
Did they do the secret handshake?
That I don't remember, no.
I'm the only one that remembers a secret handshake.
No, Charles, I do not remember a secret handshake.
Where's your pen? Do you still have the original pen?
I believe I do. I don't know where it is right this minute, but, well, we are moving. But yes, I think it's in a little box of things that I have always kept careful from my young days.
Well, when you arrived at OSU in '86, was that even on your consideration list? It doesn't have one, or it had.
I doubt if I thought of it that early. Although it probably wasn't long, because one of the first things that you start to do, of course, when you're a young teacher, is to think about ways that your really outstanding students can be recognized, and honors and achievements that they can gain to project themselves out into the academic world. And I do remember at some point now how early, it wasn't probably that early, but I do remember being really disgruntled that there was no Phi Beta Kappa chapter, and thinking that for my students who were going to go on in the humanities, or who were going to go into the law, or the professions that history students tend to gravitate toward, that would be something that would be really helpful to them. And so I remember, yes, early conversations with people around campus. Why don't we have this? What's wrong? Can't we get this done? And but it was a long process.
And how did you get involved with the process? Do you recall?
I'm sure, I don't know, did Perry Gathner manage this from day one? I can't remember. Whoever was in charge of the effort drew up a list at some point of all the people on campus they could find who had been members of Phi Beta Kappa, and contacted everybody and asked them would they be willing to start coming to meetings and participate and do various things that were necessary. And I really don't remember when that was exactly, but I thought, sure, yeah. And there were 3 or 4 people in the history department, so we talked about it a lot in the history department.
Okay.
And we're all agreed that this was something we would really like to see happen. And so I got involved with my colleagues. I remember Dr. Paul Bischoff, who was our medievalist, was very active. Dr. Bill Bryans, and then people I knew in English and foreign languages. And so yeah, we all took it up as a goal.
Were you on a committee or something that would push it through? I know there were several failed attempts.
Yes, I
before
think
you
we
found
tried
out?
twice before we. Is that right?
I think it was maybe even 3 times.
Maybe even 3, yes. There was one time that I was very, very much involved in it, and I did a lot of writing for the application that we submitted, which was quite extensive, very complicated. I believe that was in the years when I was serving as department head. So that would have been around 2006, maybe, something like that, 2005, 2006. So that was the effort that I put the most time and energy into. The next time that it came around, I went to a lot of meetings, but I was not directly involved in drafting parts of the application. Or maybe I did it twice. I can't remember for sure. It was a lot of work. I remember that especially for the people who were responsible for the ultimate coordination of the application and its formal submission. Because, of course, we wanted it to be letter perfect. And that's a big responsibility. It really is.
Well, do you remember where you were when you heard the news that it had finally been awarded?
Do I remember where I was? It was probably, I was probably in the history department. Yes, it was. I don't remember the exact moment, but it was certainly a big thrill for everybody after all the efforts that we had gone to. So.
And did you participate in the induction ceremony, the first one that OSU had?
I did. We had a big formal gathering with a lot of important people. That I don't think was the induction so much as the
There was a site
opening.
visit.
There was a site visit. Yes, I always participated in the site visits.
Dinner
yes.
in the Conoco Center.
Yes.
And then the induction, the founding ceremony was in the Old Central.
Yes. That night, I was in the ceremony and I was responsible for reading out the names of the honorary members who had so far been designated. And I remember that was a very thrilling night. Everybody was in their regalia, of course, and it was something that drew a lot of important benefactors of the school for obvious reasons. I remember Dean Stringer, who I think of as one of the absolutely crucial figures in promoting all of this and helping OSU to that point, being there. And whether he gave remarks that night or it was another night, I don't know, but he gave a very lovely speech at one point about the importance of the liberal arts and of general education, and trying to convince people that there should not be any kind of direct linkage between employment and education, that education was about becoming an educated person and citizen. And yes, we want our students to get good jobs and everything, but we don't tailor education to jobs. We tailor education to being a well-rounded citizen, which, as I take it, is one of the things that Phi Beta Kappa tries to promote. So that was good to hear from a man like that, who was a powerful figure in the OSU system, and I think very, very strongly committed to general education and the liberal arts. So that was very nice.
Have you had students since then that have become members?
Yes.
Have you?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Very, very happy to see that, because I do believe that it helps them to make their way. It still has, when you look at a resume, your eye gravitates to that Phi Beta Kappa, and I think it really helps our students to move forward. And I've had some fantastically talented students here, so I'm very, very happy to see them get that kind of recognition and be able to carry the prestige of Phi Beta Kappa with them as they go, because it is a tough, competitive world that our students are in. And they need as many markers as they can get to indicate to people, I'm a person who's really struggled for academic excellence. And it's just a kind of an immediate marker that because nobody gets it unless they work hard. You can't get Phi Beta Kappa just because you're, intellectually brilliant. You have to work and get the recognition of your teachers that you are committed and dedicated, and so it just carries a lot of weight, I think.
Did anything surprise you about the failures of previous attempts? Because we've heard stories from others where some faculty, for example, would write negative letters. There were some scandals on campus.
That did happen. There was a, now that, I don't know anything about any scandals, but on the part of some faculty, there was an idea that getting the Phi Beta Kappa chapter could be used as leverage for trying to get increased resources for the liberal arts. And so it was their thinking that if we tell the Phi Beta Kappa people, well, we don't have this, and we don't have this, and we don't have this, and we need this, and we need this, and we need this, that then they would turn around and say to the school, well, it's a wonderful little school and everything, but you need to strengthen this and this and this and this and this. I had very mixed feelings about that all the way along, but there were people who thought that, and they believed that it could be used as a way, for example, to improve the amount of money that went to the foreign languages department, because Phi Beta Kappa had always put a big emphasis on foreign languages. We knew that the foreign languages department was often strapped for funds. We hoped all along that the range of languages that were offered at OSU would grow. For people in history, in European history or world history, that's absolutely crucial. Our students cannot go to graduate school if they do not have the language training in a given language. And so if we want to prepare students to go to graduate school, they have got to be able to study Italian and Chinese and Arabic and the standard European languages. And so that was a hope that the Phi Beta Kappa application could be used in that way. I think it was a vain hope. But
were you here for Dexter Manley, the football player?
Yes, I knew about him.
Because that was one of the
things that was reported.
Things that happened,
yeah, exactly. No, I guess more, and the discussions that I was privy to among faculty were focused on what I have talked about trying to use the Phi Beta Kappa thing as a leverage for more money to the library, bigger budget for books, more journals. When the databases came along that we all are utterly dependent on now, some of those are very expensive. And, we had begun to enter into that era and could see that kind of electronic research was going to be very important in the future. And I think that since my days here in 1968, it has remained true that on the OSU campus, the ag school and the engineering school have remained the most prestigious divisions of the university. Business has become more important, I think, in the last 10 years than it was before. And the liberal arts, most, I believe, in the humanities, but in the sciences as well. I know that people feel like the resources that we need are sometimes lacking, and more attention needs to be paid, if it is indeed a comprehensive university, to the divisions of the university that offer grounding in the liberal arts. So that was part of the thinking. Of course, when you've been here for a long time, you realize that the economics of the state and of education in the state extend way beyond the sway of Phi Beta Kappa, or even often of our decision makers and leaders who might want to do certain things, but our history is an up and down of good and bad support for education overall. And a lot of those things have to do with the larger culture of the state. They're not unique to our institution. They're certainly not unique to our scholarly organizations or even to any particular division of the university. So looking back on it, I think that way of thinking was perhaps somewhat misguided. Why our applications failed, though, my own sense is that it was not that there was something deficient in our application. I don't think the last one we did was any better than the ones that we had done before. I think that Phi Beta Kappa takes a very slow and measured approach toward admitting new institutions. And in a sense, I think we were, without anybody ever saying so, nobody ever said this to me, we were kind of being told, you just have to bide your time. I don't know whether that's your theory of it or not, Charles, but that was what I thought, that it was not because of something we did wrong so much as that we just kind of had to wait in the wings, right? So.
Almost a test of endurance, wasn't it?
That it was. And it wasn't cheap either. There was a lot of expense involved in it. Think of the man hours alone that were put into the developing of the applications. And then there was the site visits and the trips to Washington to deliver the materials and all of that. So it required a tremendous effort and expenditure of resources.
For the site visit, does the campus pay for it? The university pay for it?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure we did, yes. Yeah. Well, because it's not a rich organization, right, and they depend on their members for funds, and then when they go out to make their assessments, yeah, I mean, they're not going to pay for it.
Gary Clark relayed a story to us last week where they were going to put the site visitors in the Student Union Hotel, but the air conditioning went out.
Oh.
So then they had to scramble to get window units.
Oh, really? That's one of those stories you were talking about. That's one of those
stories.
Yeah, okay.
I may have an incorrect recollection, but when I came here, I thought the College of Arts and Sciences was a college of liberal arts.
No,
it's
always been the College of Arts and Sciences since I have been here. And that's actually always been, I think, a good thing from the point of view of those of us in the humanities, because the College of Arts and Sciences has nurtured the two together without buying into the two cultures, arts on the one side, sciences on the other. And I do know there are schools where the first step toward marginalizing the humanities is to cut the college into two divisions, and that has never happened here. And I think the college has done everything it could to try to nurture development on both sides within the resources that are available. We were never able to hire that Italian professor that I wanted, but
is that your foreign language?
No, French is my favorite, but we do have a professor here whose expertise is in Italian, and it's just very difficult for him to help students think of a career in Italian culture and history if we don't have any language offerings. And we really seriously need to expand now to very regular offerings in the world languages that in the last 10, 15 years have become so much more important in our politics and our economic life. We've had some teaching of Chinese and Japanese, but sporadic and never a regular position devoted to the Asian languages. Same now for Arabic. So those things are essential to the growth and development of literary studies, history, art history, as well as the languages themselves. So keep hoping.
Are you familiar with the effort, at least discussion in arts and sciences of reducing the number of language hours?
Yes, that's gone on for a while. I think they've come to a compromise now that I just got something yesterday about it that is shy of what at least one proposal called for when the discussions got underway. But I can't remember exactly what the new decision was. I also just recently learned that the foreign language department has shifted away from everyday training, 5 days a week, to 3-day-a-week classes. So they're the 5-hour blocks that most of us took, French 1, French 2, German 1, German 2, will now be reshuffled. And so I think the number of credit hours is now going to go along with that redesigning of the number of credit hours devoted to those introductory courses. I believe I read that 9 hours was now going to be the requirement for A&S. I'm not sure. There is obviously a nationwide trend to let foreign languages go as economic resources are stretched to the limit, especially in states like ours. To me, that is a colossal error. Students gain so much from studying a foreign language in so many different ways. Just the sheer recognition by daily study and use that people speak other languages is something that you really only gain by that study and that use. And it helps, I think, subliminally to introduce a recognition that people are different, that you need to respect differences among people. So it goes way beyond being able to say, buenos dias when you arrive in Mexico or something like that.
This might be a little off topic. When I went to college, Boston University required every student to learn a foreign language.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, mine was Sanskrit. And in graduate school, it was the same thing. I think it was actually 2 languages.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't the university require students to learn a foreign language?
Well, that's an excellent question. I think we need to do the best and the most that we can, and the move to reduce it rather than to improve it is, to my mind, just a real step backward. I know that many young people believe no matter where you go in the world, people speak English. That is true, right? People do speak English. Well, not anywhere that you go in the world, but many places that you go. And some of them have made brief trips to, places in Germany or Russia or France or whatever, where people start speaking to them in English. They want to learn English, and they think, well, I don't really need a foreign language anymore. But it's up to educators to explain to students and their parents why this commitment of resources and time is valuable in so many different ways. One thing that is utterly undeniable that has been shown in many studies, as I understand it, is that students write better English if they have studied the grammatical structure of a foreign language. When you study a foreign language, you have to begin to understand the way sentences are put together in a way that you don't if you've never really studied another language. And so if we want to improve writing and reading comprehension, study of foreign languages helps with that. Most crucial of all skills, to my mind. I am really on my soapbox, aren't I?
That's okay. Sounds like you're not ready to retire.
The thing is that that's the kind of thinking that I think Phi Beta Kappa tries to promote. And to get the help of a longstanding, historically prestigious organization in trying to promote such thinking in our own environment, our own school, and our own state is, to me, it was one of the central goals of the people on the faculty who worked to get a Phi Beta Kappa chapter here, was Yep, let's bring in people who have been promoting such ideas, such thinking about the value of the liberal arts and language training and education for citizenship. All the ideas they've pushed for years and years and years and years.
Have you conducted spring break trips overseas?
No, I have never done
I've
that.
done several. The last trip was to Spain, looking at the Islamic contributions to science
Yeah.
and psychology, and every one of the students are shocked by routinely how these Europeans know so many languages, switching from Spanish to English to
Yes.
French.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
like that.
Yes.
And they feel embarrassed.
It is a remarkable thing to see people just, without blinking an eye, move from one language to another. Not a facility that very many Americans ever gain at all. The reasons are clear. I mean, we do live in a vast continental space and territory that never fostered that. But that is no reason not to recognize that as the world gets closer and closer together in all kinds of ways, when we deal with, communicate with, have exchanges with people in other countries, it's absolutely crucial that we show an interest in and respect for the language in which they think, as well as in the English that they have made great efforts to learn, but that for them is always going to be a lingua franca for some utilitarian purpose, or in many cases. And I don't know. OSU really wants to promote travel abroad, study abroad. To me, one effort would be to make that study abroad experience more and more and more and more about language and learning, preparing, speaking to, not going into an English-speaking island. And that would be a very different thing from just taking a quick trip and talking to as many people as you can who are willing to speak to you in English. I know not all students can do that. It would not be practical to think otherwise. But it would be nice to see more effort put into language preparation as a background to study abroad, and more interest in facilitating direct exchanges rather than language
And you may have had the
exchanges
same
mediated by
experience
English.
that I had, where you have your engineering friends, your different groups, and they can only talk about maybe engineering or something else, while you can talk about a wide range of subjects. And I always thought that was the beauty of Phi Beta Kappa.
Yes, it is, yeah.
And the liberal arts education.
The idea of general education, I think, is liberal education where you know something about a great many things. You have a specialty. Obviously, everybody needs a focus for the work of their life. But functioning as a citizen in a democracy means that you need to be aware of and cognizant with all kinds of issues, able to talk to all different kinds of people. I really believe that a lot of our problems stem from the fact that we encourage a very high level of technical expertise in all kinds of fields, but we don't necessarily expect people that have that expertise to be able to understand the position of whatever it is that they do in society, how it affects society. And that's something that we need to keep working on. It's not like we've not worked on it or that we'll stop working on it, but we need to commit ourselves to just keep at it. Try to produce people that read and know and think about all kinds of different things, and put that above. I know parents are anxious. My kid's got to get a job. I don't blame anybody for that. I've got 2 kids. I know what that feels like. But their education should come first. If they're well educated, they will make their way in the world. They will find jobs.
Do your children know that you're Phi Beta Kappa?
Oh yes, of
What do they
course.
think about
Oh
that?
yeah, yeah. They're very proud of it.
Right.
And I have one daughter that is, and one daughter that isn't. And so that was it was something we were certainly aware of when they were going through school.
Now that we have a chapter, do you have any suggestions on how the chapter can do a better job of making their presence felt on campus?
I think that a thing to do would be to, whether we have the money, I don't know, because I haven't had anything to do with the finances of the chapter, but would be to have one prominent speaker every year and invite the whole community and have make a big deal of it, have it move around from field to field so that it wasn't just in the humanities or just in the sciences. And I don't know, do we have that kind of money? I'm not sure.
I believe we don't have it now. We will.
Yeah.
Because we certainly have access to the Phi Beta Kappa Speakers Bureau.
Yeah.
And I believe we had a speaker a couple of years ago. I think we have another one coming up soon.
Yeah. I just think that public talks of that kind, and then encourage students to go and write up a report on it or something for extra credit or whatever. I've been just amazed sometimes to see the reaction of every time there's any kind of talk that is appropriate to students in my class. I always send them and have them write a statement about what they learned and what their reaction was. And it is so wonderful to, some of them have never been to a talk like that. They have been into their classes and they've heard issues discussed in that way, but they tend to think of it as, like textbook classroom stuff. Then somebody comes from outside and they hear about this person's career and the person takes up some issue that's exciting or controversial or whatever. And I think it just gives them an insight into what the intellectual life is all about. So I think that would be just a lovely way. And then advertise it as a Phi Beta Kappa event so that Phi Beta Kappa gets the credit for keeping up that kind of an intellectual forum. I would be really strongly in favor of that. So you think there is the money there somewhere? I know it's a lot of work. Having speakers come in from outside takes a lot of energy and effort, but I think that would be a lovely thing if every spring we could finish the school year, or a kickoff talk in the fall would be really nice.
I certainly suggest that.
Okay. Another thing that I think would be lovely to see would be interchange between Phi Beta Kappa and the Honors College. A lot of our inductees, I'm sure, come from the honors program. And somebody told me, I don't know who it was now, recently that there was discussion underway in the Honors College about the Honors College becoming more active in trying to sponsor events and activities. And if the two could work together, I think that would be really nice. And God knows Old Central is just such a wonderful locale, because it has the whole history of our school right there in that one. I think it's just a beautiful building, don't you think so?
I do too.
Yeah. And so it evokes the spirit of the place just by going there. And they did, as usual, a beautiful renovation job there. You really have to give it to the folks at OSU. They know how to renovate a building. So,
Been a good 30 years.
yes, it has really been a good 30 years. It has been a wonderful life. I love this department, and I really love this institution, and I really love the state of Oklahoma. And the three have blended together just very beautifully for me over those years. I've had a lot of terrific students. I still hear from a lot of them. That's always wonderful for teachers. Sometimes I heard from a student the other day who's teaching in high school somewhere in California. I had not heard from him in 15 years. Dear Dr. Williams, I just wanted you to know how important your class was to me in some, year a long way back. And how much I have used what I learned there in my own teaching. And, think when you get little missives like that, it makes you so happy. So,
What are you going to miss the most?
well, I think, of course, I'll miss my students tremendously. And there are a couple of them that I really I thought maybe I better not retire this year after all. One of them was getting ready to do Wentz project next year, and she asked me if I would direct it for her. And I had at that time to tell her, I'm really sorry, I'd love to do this, but I'm going to retire. And that I thought maybe I better wait one more year. So I'll miss my students. I think what I'll miss the most, though, is the day-to-day life in my department, which I have really enjoyed. Just being here with my colleagues, with the students in and out, the meetings, sometimes contentious, but mostly not. My department is a very harmonious place. And so the day-to-day of everything that goes together, the teaching, the students, the research projects, the talks that my colleagues give, the walking over to the library, I love the library. I've spent a lot of time in that library. And so
Good to hear.
Just missing the whole context. But when I think about it, I think all things come to an end, and I believe this is the moment for me. I've been at it a long time, and I think this is the right moment. I certainly won't stop my scholarly life. I'll probably continue for as long as I can read and write. I can't imagine ever giving that up. But that'll be quite different from doing scholarship that then is integrated into teaching. But
First thing on your to-do list?
beyond the practicalities of moving and all that, well, I have a book that I've been working on for over a decade. And I intend to spend every waking moment that I can now on finishing that project, which I have worked on for a long time. One of the reasons, actually, that I decided I should retire is that I found it more and more difficult to work on this huge synthetic project in the fragments that you get during your teaching year, so I'd have 2 hours here and 2 hours there and 2 hours there. There's a lot of individual tasks that you can do in that way, but the brain power, the brain work that goes with putting something together and pulling it into one unified whole, I thought I really need to be able to work on this every single day until it's done now. And so.
Can you tell us the topic?
Yes, the title of the manuscript is Appetite and Its Discontents, the Science and Medicine of the Drive to Eat. It's about the history of, my main field in the history of medicine and science, and it is about the history of the way that physicians and psychologists and others have thought about why we eat what we do and the choices that we make. And it has a theoretical section, and it has a section focused on the clinical medicine of disturbed eating that goes back into the Enlightenment. It covers 200 years of European science and American, so it's on the U.S., France, Germany, and England from the Enlightenment to around 1950. It's an enormous project. I bit off, I think, literally, since I'm talking about eating, more than I could chew. But it's been very exciting, and I have a draft manuscript that I need now to put into final shape. So.
Took a lot of research for all of that. A lot of places.
Oh, yes.
A lot of research.
I can't tell you how much I've used the... so it's quite different from the other projects that I've done have been archivally based, and I've gone and plopped myself down in France or England are the two places that I've worked in archives and done very specialized topics. This one is enormous. It moves all over the map. And so I use mostly printed primary sources, many of which have become available to me on the databases that the library has purchased membership in, so that I can pull up works on my computer that I used to have to write a grant proposal and get abroad and go to a rare book library. And it is astonishing to me what has become available to scholars in the last 10 years in those digitized formats. It's really unbelievable. If somebody had told me that at the beginning of my career, I said, oh, you're living in a dream world. Now it's more fun to go to a rare book library in London or Paris or Edinburgh or something, but it's difficult and expensive. And so every day I'm on those databases, and the library has become a treasure trove for somebody like me.
See the world from your desk.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Or discover it.
I'm never going to stop going to those archives, but anyway, so that's what I'm going to do as soon as I retire, is to finish this big project and put in a garden. Two pretty good things, right?
Yeah. New Mexico will require watering, I would think.
Yeah. We're up in the mountains, and there's quite a bit of snow there in the winter, and then they have it, but they've had drought like we have. So we'll see what happens there, right?
Any other questions, Charles?
I'm just admiring your books.
Oh.
Yeah, we have some of the same books.
Oh goodness, I love my books. Where am I going to put all these books? My husband has 7 shelves like this in his office over in the English department.
And I thought I was the only one to read that mosquito book.
That's a good book.
It's a good book.
I used that in my history of medicine class one year. Yeah. So.
Well, my last question is when history is written about you, what would you like for it to say?
Well, I guess I would like for it to say that I was incredibly lucky in blending a scholarly life and a family life, which have putting them together just has made me a happy person.
And making it back to Oklahoma.
Yeah. Oh, yes, definitely. Well, I hope so. I told one of my students the other day, he wrote to me about something. Thank you for doing X, Y, or Z. And this has really helped me with blank. And I said, teaching is a funny profession because you hope that you're having an impact, right? But in the day-by-day, you don't actually see it very much. I mean, you can see that you've helped a student with a project or something like that. But where the teaching that you've done fits in relation to the teaching that all the other people around you have done with a particular student, and where they're going to go with it and what's going to come of them, you don't see it. It's not like building a desk or something like a carpenter might, where the product is absolutely right in front of you. And so what you have is this long-term hope and vision that you've contributed to people's lives. And then every now and then you get those letters like I was telling you, and you think, oh, good. Yes, I hope that I have had a good impact with I counted it up, I think it's been about 5,000 students.
Well, I think OSU got lucky in getting you here. So.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. It's been a wonderful place to work. I will miss it all the time. Although I decided I was just not going to say goodbye to anybody. I was just going to say, we'll be back to visit all the time and I'll come and see you. So, and I'm sure I will too. Keep going to that library.
That's right. Well, come on.
Yeah.
So certainly skill plays a big part in you getting jobs and so on, scholarly activity.
Yeah.
But how much do you think, I know in my case, there's so much luck involved, being at the right place at the right time.
Absolutely. I think that's true. Yeah, absolutely. That's true in most things, isn't it? I get the impression. I don't know.
When I was younger, I didn't think it was that true. But when I look back on my career, I say, boy, it was there. I took advantage of the opportunities, but I was just lucky to be there at that particular time.
Yes, I think that's right. Well, like that day that I walked down and there was that notice about the job at OSU. We didn't know for sure, but in fact it worked out to be a wonderful place for my husband and I to make our careers. And that was just happenstance. Yeah, it might have happened that something else would have come along. Certainly we hope so. But yeah, I think you're right that, and I just feel overall that being a professor at a school like this, I mean, you're just lucky by definition to be in such a wonderful institution with smart, hardworking, cultivated people around you, and eager students, fresh, ready to take on the world. How could you ask for a better way of life? Really? You couldn't. In that, we're all incredibly lucky.
Especially those that look at this as a vocation, not a job.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's a wonderful way of life. I remember a professor I had at Oregon back in the days when students were saying, "How is it relevant?" Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one day he got very irritated at somebody who made a comment like that. And he said, "What are you talking about? How could anything be more relevant than the university? It's been here for 1,000 years. Everybody who has tried to change the world for the better has moved through it and been trained and taught within it. You're just, you're crazy if you think the university isn't relevant." And that student looked disgruntled, but I bet he went home and realized, yeah, well, that's true. It's an ancient institution. It's hard to imagine how the world ever functioned without it. And I at least believe that it's in good part the universities that have made our culture what it is. And the sponsoring of free and open discussion. What could be more essential to our self-definition? You can't think of anything else that's more important than that, really. And you compare the world that people live in where that kind of discussion is not allowed. And you think, talk about lucky. So.
And your path all started with the 5th grade sister.
That 5th grade sister, yeah, who loved the Crusaders. Now, the Crusaders don't have a great rep these days, but she inspired a lot of eager enthusiasm among at least one little girl. So,
Did you focus on a favorite, or the first one, or about the other 7?
That I don't remember. Yeah, that was only later, I guess. I started to tell one from another.
Well, and from that inspiration, I'm sure you've inspired many others.
Well, so, I hope so.
It comes full circle.
I do hope so. Yeah, it has been a constant, wonderful challenge. I guess this week when I was thinking about, so I'm teaching my last class tomorrow, right? And I thought, but all my life, a huge part, since I got my first teaching job, a huge part of my life has been, how can I make it go better next semester? Maybe that reading, I should get rid of that one and put this in here in place. I really need to revise that lecture, and I thought, what is it going to feel like to walk out of that class tomorrow and think, I'm not thinking toward, okay, when I start up again in the fall, I really should do this. That's going to be a huge shift. So
maybe a tear or two.
I've had a few tears. Yeah. I'm sure I'll have a few more. Anyway.
You done?
All done?
All done.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
When you first wrote to me, I thought, now what exactly is this? But then I thought about it and I thought, this is so nice. I do have these long-term and really deep connections with OSU. And I thought doing some kind of an oral history of my experience framed around the Phi Beta Kappa would be a really nice thing to do here at the end. So I appreciate your asking me and taking the time to come and
well, did we forget anything? Is there anything else you want to add before we close?
No, I think we've probably said enough.
Okay,
so
give you the chance.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.